Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another evening of Ramadan Storytime with Sister Marsha. I hope you all have had a great day. We are still in the month of Ramadan, so Ramadan Mubarak. I'm so excited to read tonight's story to you. I hope that you learned some good lessons from it. And so without further ado, we are going to jump into tonight's story. It is from the Quran Stories for Kids series again. And remember, the author on those is Sunny Yasmin Khan. And tonight's story is The Brave Boy. The Brave Boy. Long, long ago, about 4,000 years ago, there lived the Prophet Ibrahim, alayhi salam. And we've been going over the Prophet Ibrahim, and we have also mentioned that Ibrahim is pronounced in English Abraham. He was gracious, tender-hearted, and pure in faith. His family lived in a beautiful valley which is now known as Mecca. One night, the Prophet Ibrahim dreamt that he was sacrificing his son Ishmael. This was an order from his Lord. Ishmael was still a child, but the Prophet Ibrahim told him about the dream. Ishmael, alayhi salam, or upon him be peace, was a brave boy. He was ready to obey the command of Allah, who had created him. So without hesitating, he said to his father, "Do what you are commanded, Father. God willing, you will find me one of the steadfast." So Ibrahim had a dream that he needed to sacrifice his son, and his son was going to comply with Allah's request. That's amazing. Ibrahim took his son away to sacrifice him. As he reached a place which is now known as Minna, a valley near Mecca, Satan appeared and tried to stop him from doing his Lord's bidding. Wonder how this is going to turn out. The Prophet Ibrahim picked up a few small stones and threw them at Satan. Little Ishmael, alayhi salam, and his mother did likewise. So you see the stones in the picture being thrown. The Prophet Ibrahim gently placed his son on the ground and blindfolded himself with a handkerchief so that he could not see his beloved son while carrying out the Lord's command. So, as you can imagine, it was even hard for Ibrahim to do what Allah had commanded him to do to his son. So much so that he put a scarf or a handkerchief on his face. As Ibrahim took a knife to sacrifice Ishmael, Allah sent the angel Jibril, or Gabriel, down with a ram. "Sacrifice this ram. Do not sacrifice Ishmael," said Jibril to Ibrahim. Whew. That was just in the nick of time, right? He was going to have to sacrifice his son, and instead, Jibril brought the ram. Allah was so pleased with the readiness of Ibrahim to sacrifice his beloved son that he commanded the believers to observe this day as Eid al-Adha, or the Feast of sacrifice. Every year, Muslims sacrifice an animal in remembrance of the Prophet Ibrahim's trust in Allah. So for those of you who have heard of Eid al-Adha, that is the significance of that Eid. It's the remembrance of Ibrahim's willingness to sacrifice Ishmael. This story reminds believers of the readiness of the Prophet Ibrahim to give up his most beloved son. Likewise, believers should be ready to part with their precious belongings and their wealth, and even give up their lives if the cause of Islam so requires. The Quran says, "Truly my prayers, my sacrifice, my life, and my death all belong to Allah, the Lord of the worlds." And that comes from Surah Al-An'am, or the 6th Surah, Ayat 162. And that was the reading of our story for this evening, The Brave Boy. I'm so glad that you were able to join me for tonight's reading. I hope that you got a good lesson out of today's reading, and that is that regardless to how precious things may be to us, for Allah, we have to be willing to make the sacrifice. And so I hope that you all have a great evening, rest of your evening. Remember, we are in the month of Ramadan, so remember Allah often. And I hope that you get all the blessings that you are looking for in this season. Without further ado, we're going to end this session for this evening. I hope you can join me again tomorrow for Ramadan Storytime with Sister Marsha. Assalamu alaikum. See you next time.